Good morning, folks. Starting today with NASA's Earth Observatory, comparing the last two ozone holes and giving some explanation of the natural variability and where NASA sees this going into the future. Excellent article here about star-making cluster galaxies versus those out in relative isolation. They explain that the denser clusters seem to be dead and not forming stars anymore. They've likely used up all the available fuel in short order, leaving them as fainter complements to the brighter formation regions. Let's go back to early October. Filament wrapping around more than half the sun destabilized and released in spectacular fashion. The geo-effective space weather associated with those eruptions was the subject of an intense study on relativistic electrons in our shields. Just where are they coming from? Interestingly, their genesis appears to be in the same layers that release negatively charged oxygen during CME impacts. You might remember that they will meet the positive hydrogen for potential electrochemical star-water combination above our heads, and what do you know? The particle shifts they're describing occur during CME impacts as well. Last of the day's articles come from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, looking at one of the brightest objects we know of, although it's severely shrouded by dust. This cluster is 10,000 times more dense than our local interstellar neighborhood. Solid article link below. Coming to the RSOE alert map to see environmental pollution. Government-run oil company claims it cleaned up the spill with full containment the day before it began affecting residents. Whoops. Try again, government. Pop to the Indian Ocean to take a look at Amara and Bruce, two cyclones developed and heading southwest. Contrast the cloud motion with the surface drive via pressure. This is the southern hemisphere, so the lows spin clockwise. These cyclones developed exactly where they were predicted to form, which bodes slightly ominous for the North Australian coastline, expected to be under storm formation threat in less than 1 week. Until then, top tropical concerns are headed for Madagascar. Let's pull this down and show the North Pole to share a point from the evening news last night. Now, while Arctic air is still diving down over the western hemisphere, it's going up here, absolute geographic north, taking its cue from way, way south. Let's come to an oval to get the US and Europe. Folks, sometimes the old wind map is just better for the US. Convergence line will have major precipitation. It'll be majorly above average temperatures out ahead of it with southern heat coming north, and obviously cooling back down on the backside. Anyway, the low that is just off the eastern US coastline is not quite as powerful as the convergence pointed out yesterday, expected to bring hardship to Europe. And this morning, we see a trifecta of extreme weather there, more likely to pop up as the day goes on. South America, same story with tremendous amounts of rain. Luckily, no major events reported yet. Landslide and flash flood potential hits hard there when it does go down. Solar flaring, still in C range, but potential exists for larger flares now. Lots of spots on the disk, the incomers at the limb not producing yet or magnetically mixing. However, the central group, baby active region that's developed major size, now has that central polarity mixing, and that's a central delta spot. Solar wind is relatively calmish, no major shocks, no geomagnetic instability. Coronal holes coming in up top as well. The coronal fields appear to be open on the limb, turning in towards Earth, but as of now, the coronal holes departing the disk are much, much stronger. As always, we've got eyes on those coronal holes, their force, and that central delta spot. Eyes open. No fear, it's 6:35 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's the news. Be safe, everyone.